Welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on high performance computing. Today, my guest is from Univa. We have the president and CEO, Gary Tyreman. Welcome to the show today.
Hey, thank you, Rich. I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate the time.
Well, terrific. Yeah, I've brought your slides up. Why don't we start there and tell us a little bit about Univa, and we'll follow it with a Q&A.
Sounds great. So, Univa has been around for a while, and today our business strategy is to provide the evolution of Grid Engine, and we intend to lead the mainstreaming of the technology of HPC outside of what we call traditional HPC. So for people who are not familiar with us, our business strategy might be slightly different than the earlier derivations of the company, but the objective remains the same. And that is, if you think back to what we've been doing, we were a co-development partner with Sun Microsystems, which dates back to 2007, directly related to technology building on top of and around Grid Engine, supplying that to end users and supporting some of the largest companies in the world. In fact, back in 2008, 2009, we built the first Grid Engine cloud for Pathwork Diagnostics, which went into production. We built the first hybrid Grid Engine cloud for JPL and helped them do some fairly fancy things in their image processing, including cutting costs, which is a large part of our focus here. So the business impact, what we're trying to solve, really comes down to provide a trusted path going forward for Grid Engine users and provide a simple upgrade to help people get there. And moving on to slide 2, it's always interesting to take a step back and look at, who's using Grid Engine, where are the sites? We know there's about 10,000 data centers that have Grid Engine embedded, and there's a pretty dramatic story as to how all that happened. But you can imagine it's inside the traditional high-performance computing, the traditional industries, including EDA, oil and gas, energy, life sciences, manufacturing. But with Univa, we're seeing a lot of non-traditional HPC deployments, meaning underneath and in support of mission-critical business applications, big data environments, for example, Hadoop, but not only Hadoop by itself. So why is this important? I think it's clear that the broad applicability and the use of Grid Engine demonstrates and is another proof point for the mainstreaming of HPC, and of course, Grid Engine in particular. So some proof points to support the fact that HPC is driving into the mainstream is in the last year, we've had IBM's acquisition of Platform, and that was really targeted around providing a single data platform, which is one of the assets that Platform Computing had. The Hadoop community itself has kicked off a scheduling project. The OpenStack project is also building a scheduler. And then inside Univa, we have customer proof points of customers that are using Univa Grid Engine in their Hadoop environments, and also customers that are using the product, Univa Grid Engine, outside of what we call traditional HPC, nothing to do with science, nothing to do with engineering, in support of traditional business applications. And this is brought to the market through an ISV that's bundling the product. Next slide, please. So just to kind of recap a little bit of the situation, I think most people understand what has happened or transpired. And in 2010, Oracle changed the game. So gone are the days of developing in the open, and in particular, gone is a subsidy from a multi-billion-dollar company. So today, there's still choice, but new features, support, bug fixes, and qualified binaries are not simply being provided by Oracle and Sun. So the fact is, there is a choice. People can stay with open source, or they can evolve forward. So when we look at the Grid Engine development in the 10 years that it's been in what we call an open development community, you can see that 97% of the code was written by salaried developers. And what that really translates to is those folks were working for Sun. 97% of the development of the product was conducted by people, and it's a core development team. And less than 3% were actually through check-in. So this is public information. It's available. You can go and do the math, which is exactly what we've done. This was interesting for us because what it shows is that in order to evolve the product, you need the developers that understand how to write the code. The core development team that's been doing it for 10 years works for Univa. And what we're really trying to show with the black line is the evolution from the starting point of 6.2U5 through until where we get to 8.1. Now, this is not exactly to scale. It's rational. Show that in the last year, we've delivered 2 releases. We're about to deliver our 3rd, and we're increasing at a rapid rate. And our roadmap is chock full of things that will bring value to the product, not just within features, but also as product add-ons. Now, I'm not going to predict what the open source is going to be doing. I can't do that, and I'm not going to try to do it. But I think it's clear and that the history can help predict the future. Next slide. So there is a choice, and of course, we encourage people to evolve with Univa. Our objectives in delivering Grid Engine and enhancements is to help focus on the admin and the overall environment to drive the TCO as low as is possible. And we're going to do that through innovative features. That's where we've been spending a lot of our time. That's the mantra within the engineering team. And we're doing that also with by bringing more value to the product by adding new products and bringing new products that we can deliver along with Univa Grid Engine into the support of the overall environment. Understanding that Grid Engine is a piece, but it's a critical piece. If your UPS goes out, your cluster is probably going to run. If your monitoring goes off, your cluster will continue to run. Grid Engine goes down, your cluster will go down. So we understand that. And in order to help the customers of Univa, we have global enterprise support when and where you need it. This is what we do. It's not something we do as a passion. It is something we do as a business. And I think what's really clear, people should understand, is Univa Grid Engine is an upgrade. It's not a massive transition. It's not a migration. It is, as much as possible, depending where somebody is starting, a drop-in replacement. And from our perspective, in all the customers we've acquired, it's been the case that it's very easy to validate, very easy to check and drop in. Next slide. So Univa stepped in 2011, and so it's 1 year later. So what have we accomplished? Well, we've got quite a few things that we can be proud of, and I think number one is it's about execution and delivery. We're here today to announce the 3rd production release of Grid Engine in 1 year. That is something that Sun Microsystems, prior to Oracle, neither company have been able to achieve. It is not an inconsequential or an insignificant amount of work and effort that goes behind it. It required a significant investment in order to support some of the largest companies in the world. We've absolutely needed to spend the money. We've got support that goes around the clock. We've brought on some of the largest customers in the world that are using Grid Engine. And in order to do that, we need to do both support them on a day-to-day basis in the nature of the mission-critical clusters that they're running. And, of course, we need to be bringing new features. So we've had a very aggressive roadmap. We are not just in this new version bringing yet more features which are targeted at saving time and money. We're spending a lot of engineering time delivering new products. We have Unisight, which is advanced reporting that is in production in several Grid Engine sites. And we're looking at improving the TCO. And in our roadmap coming forward in 2012, we've got a number of additional deliveries which will increase the operational effectiveness of Grid Engine, as well as help to maintain some of the larger costs in the data center. Next slide, please. So we are the leading choice for Grid Engine sites around the world. And again, this is related to what have we achieved in the last 12 months, keeping in mind that hiring the team meant we had to spend time delivering the product. So our first version of the product hit almost 1 year ago this month. Since then, we've closed 4 of the top 5 Grid Engine sites by core counts. So these are extreme size clusters. 4 of the top 5 enterprise Grid Engine sites And the research side, 4 of the top 7. And in the last quarter and a half, 2 of the top oil and gas companies in the world that are using Grid Engine. Next slide. What are we announcing? It's the next version of Univa Grid Engine, version 8.1, which is available in the first half of 2012, which is essentially within this quarter. The objective of this release, again, is to decrease the total cost of ownership of Grid Engine, in particular at scale. There's a very different world when you start to hit the scale. We're seeing a lot of the customers that we onboarded over the last year that are now hitting core counts simply by upgrading their hardware that are creating problems. That's quite often one of the key indicators of when somebody is ready to talk to Univa. But without getting into the technical nature of some of the features here, there's really 3 things that are being delivered. And the first is high availability. Number 1, that comes from developing and doing the quality. So we spend half our time qualifying the release, not just fixing a bunch of things, improving things, and throwing it over the fence. So half of our engineering time is spent in QA. Number 2, we're putting in features that some of our larger customers that are running extremely expensive infrastructure have asked us for. And so in this particular case, it's about job spooling, and we're balancing the speed of the submission in the spool by hitting a database with reliability. And so if you've got hundreds of thousands of small jobs that you're running, you probably don't want to be writing it out to disk, number 1. And number 2, you want to make sure that you can scale out, create high availability, and turn on the master or the shadow master. Second feature set is all about performance. A lot of what we've done in the last year has been stability related, but also, we need to start teasing this out. It's all about performance. And so it's about throughput, getting more jobs into the system, getting more jobs off the system in a satisfactory manner, and doing so as fast as you can. So we know Univa Grid Engine is faster than the 6.2U5 derivation. We know it's more stable, but in particular, we're spending a lot of time trying to quantify that, and over the next couple months, we'll have some more details there. The third set is about saving time, and this is specific to the administrator of the system and trying to help them either find information faster, find the problems and diagnose the issues quicker, or allow them to onboard applications in a more consistent way so that they can manage the workflow in a very better way to help them save time as they bring on new users or take on new types of applications. And of course, as always, Univa Grid Engine will be available for testing and qualification, and we encourage our prospects and customers to do so. Next slide. Our partners, this is a subset of the partners that we work with. In particular, the ones I'd like to kind of tease out would be StackIQ, who's a very close partner. They provide the cluster management toolkit. They will resell Univa Grid Engine. We're seeing that the ROC's capability in Grid Engine has a very high overlap, so that's quite strategic for us. We've been playing in the cloud arena for the better part of 2.5 years, and we have solutions that we've brought to make building a Grid Engine cluster within minutes as simple as pushing a single button. And we've done that 2 ways now. One is with RightScale, using and leveraging their simplistic interface. That was a decision about a lot of large companies that we work with already use RightScale. And so by bringing that together and doing the integration, we've made it as simple as clicking a button. With the Amazon Marketplace, we're also available directly, which means you don't have to be using any particular system. You can go and launch it, and away you go. Cloudera, we have joint customers, as I mentioned earlier, using Univa Grid Engine within Hadoop environments, and in particular, it's Cloudera. And we have a number of customers that we're working on with Eucalyptus. And in this environment, they're really trying to take a Grid Engine compute cluster and pull in additional resources from a Eucalyptus cloud that's sitting within the same data center. And so they can grow and shrink within. So essentially, it's a hybrid, but it's not in a public manner. It's by pulling in servers from a Eucalyptus cloud, reprovisioning them, creating a grid engine image, running workload, and then handing them back. And in order to do that as well, we've integrated with Puppet with another product called UniCloud. So we've got a number of technology oriented partnerships up on the slide here, which really is about helping customers take better advantage of their grid engine environments, whether it's through public cloud management, internal management of cloud environments. And again, Puppet has a very high number of customers that use Grid Engine, and so bringing those closer is simply makes sense. So next slide. For those who are looking for more information, we drive people to our website. There's not only just the information on the products, but in particular, 3 things I would recommend. Number 1, download a free trial and try it for yourself. Chances are, with the touching over 1 million lines of code in the last 12 months, we've probably implemented the feature you've been looking for, or we fixed the problem. There's also a lot more detail that I've kind of gone through at a very high level, trying to focus on the benefits and the value proposition. But from a technical nature, we do private briefings on our roadmap, so you can see what's coming. We have some very exciting things I kind of hinted at, and also in the features in 8.1 and the features we put into 8.01 and 8.0 before it, there's a lot of information that can be driven from that. We've got more than enough people to do that. And then, of course, we openly encourage people to talk to our customers. We've got a number that will take a phone call, do a reference, and I think that's an important thing that will help Univa stand up. And then, of course, last slide is thank you.
Well, terrific. Well, thanks for that, Gary. Question about your customer engagements. Do you find that a lot of the customers you talk to are in that upgrade situation? They've been using Grid Engine, or are they fresh customers with new problems?
I would think 90+% of our customers are Grid Engine customers. So they're Grid Engine sites, I should say. They've been using Grid Engine for a number of years. They're well versed with it. It was a legitimate business decision, given that it was backed by a multi-billion-dollar company that provided qualified binaries, new features, and what have you. What we see is really one of 2 things. Either there's something that changes in the cluster, so they might be going through a large upgrade, bringing in new servers, changing out significant amounts of the technology, or something breaks. And I mean, that's clearly going to be 2 of the top, maybe 10 things or reasons they would call us. There are a number of accounts, in particular, we have an OEM in Japan that's bringing new customers to us, and these are organizations or individuals that have never used the technology before. And so it's packaged in a way that it's delivered. It's a turnkey solution. They plug it in, and away they go.
And I was curious also, Gary, about how do you test for this new release? You're talking about big hyperscale deployments, right? I mean, Fritz and those guys in Germany don't have a couple 100,000 cores down in the basement, do they?
I wish they did, although I'm glad I'm not paying for it. So we ourselves actually do scale testing in 2 different ways. So first of all, we do have several data centers where we have our own technology. And I might add, I mean, that's a key element. We've got AIX, HPOX, several Solaris, Spark, Intel, Linux from multiple vendors. And that, as you know, when you buy it for development, we are using it for QA as well. That's not inexpensive. That takes a lot of capital. We do scale testing ourselves in our QA process. We actually use Amazon. So we'll fire up several thousand core environments and do the scale testing. But the best bet is inside someone else's data center. And this is really, it's less about the QA and it's more about validation. So you're right, we don't have 70,000 cores that we're going to have at our disposal. And it's really not the cores and the count of the cores. It's really the workflow that we don't have. And so in terms of taking it into an enterprise, almost every enterprise will have its own development test environments, and we can drop it in there, and they can do their scale testing. But what they're doing is less about scale, and it's much more about ensuring that the workflow that they've written, that they depend upon day in and day out, A, works, we haven't broken anything, and more importantly, that we've solved problems that they've worked around. So they do a lot of the validation of the workflow more than they do validation of Grid Engine.
Great. So, kind of a wrap-up question here, Gary. You mentioned Stack IQ, and I know that they're pushing into the big data market with their ability to spin up Hadoop clusters. Do you see a play there for Univa in that kind of big data environment as a growth market for the company?
The short answer, yes. The longer answer would be it's not necessarily tied directly to big data, but I think we have several significant examples and data points that after a few, when you get into tens and 20s, you're probably not just seeing an anomaly. But we have a lot of data points of customers taking Grid Engine into their Hadoop environment because they've recognized there's a challenge. Number one, Hadoop is a cluster. It's not a big SMP. The most cost-effective way is using scale-out cluster technology. So a cluster is a cluster, and you need to manage the sharing of that environment and drive up the utilization. So I think those side of it, we have 4 customers in production today with Hadoop and Univa Grid Engine. So that's tip of the iceberg. But I think more substantial is we have several ISVs that have been bundling the software for a number of years, and that software is not going into traditional engineering and scientific environments. It's going into business data applications in the data center supporting core business operations of many of the largest companies in the world. And I think that opens up an opportunity for us to better understand how do we take advantage of that, how do we better support that. Then we've got our technology assets, including UniCloud, where we're bringing a new interface to that, and that brings us into application management, which could be application management within the construct of bringing together your business applications, your big data, and your compute environment.
Well, this has been very interesting, Gary. I want to thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me.
You bet. Okay, folks, that's it for the Rich Report. Stay tuned for more news and information on the world of high performance computing.